The story kicks off with two best friends, Sloan and Katie, hanging out at a lively house party. Everyone's laughing, passing around drinks, and enjoying themselves like any carefree group of teenagers would. Life feels light, loud, and simple in that moment. A few days later, the girls ask their mom for permission to spend some time at their Uncle Jason's farm, way out in the countryside, far from the nearest town. They tell her they want to take a short break before starting their new jobs working on organic farms. The next morning, Uncle Jason shows up in his pickup truck, ready to take them to the quiet rural place. After dropping them off, he reminds them to stay safe and keep their phones close since the area is pretty isolated. But the girls have no clue that two men have been quietly watching them from a distance since they arrived. Completely unaware, Sloan and Katie make a stop at a small roadside cafe to grab some food and rest from the long ride. They order, chat, and laugh. Just another normal day, until the same two men suddenly walk in and approach their table, pretending to be friendly. The men introduce themselves as Jed and Lucas, claiming they're heading to Brooklyn to check out some film locations. They seem polite, confident, and charming, especially Jed, whose looks instantly catch Sloan's attention. While talking, Sloan accidentally lets slip that they're on their way to their uncle's farm nearby. Jed quickly offers them a ride, saying he and Lucas live close to that area too. Katie feels unsure, but doesn't want to seem rude, and Sloan seems a little too trusting. So eventually, they agree to tag along. Things start feeling off when Jed drives past the area of the farm and doesn't stop. He keeps going until they reach his place instead, saying it's just a short detour. Sloan's instinct tells her something's weird, but Jed's charm and confidence make her hesitate to speak up. Once they reach the house, Jed's mother, Gemma, welcomes them warmly, offering food, drinks, and even some supplies for their supposed expedition. The girls, exhausted and hungry, accept the meal without thinking twice. But within minutes of eating, their bodies start reacting. Nausea, dizziness, blurred vision. Panic sets in as they realize something's very wrong. The food was laced with drugs. Desperate, they try to escape, stumbling out of the house, but it's too late. The family isn't a kind local household. They're a ring of human traffickers who kidnap young women, sell them to depraved buyers, and kill them once they're no longer useful. The girls are recaptured and dragged back. When they wake up, their wrists are chained with metal cuffs inside a container in the middle of nowhere. The air is damp and cold. They scream for help, but no one can hear them. Minutes later, Jed walks in, smirking as he tells them their fates. They'll soon be sold off to satisfy someone's twisted fantasies. His words are enough to freeze their blood. Soon, another man named Boris enters, checking the merchandise with disturbing calmness. Just when the girls think it can't get worse, a sheriff named Andrew bursts in, gun drawn. For a split second, they believe they're saved. Relief floods their faces. But that hope dies immediately when Andrew holsters his gun and starts laughing. He's one of them. The so-called rescuer is part of the same nightmare. He treats them with cruelty, especially targeting Katie. Despite her pleas, he forces her into something no human should endure. The look in his eyes shows there's no empathy left, only power and control. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Uncle Jason grows worried. The girls haven't called or texted all day. His gut tells him something's not right, so he heads out to check the farm himself. When he arrives, the ranch manager informs him the girls never made it there. Jason's heart drops. Panic turns to determination. He drives straight to the local sheriff's office to report them missing. But fate has another cruel twist. Andrew, the same corrupt sheriff involved in their abduction, is the one who takes the report. He acts disinterested, dismisses Jason's concern, and promises to look into it, knowing full well what's happening. Meanwhile, back in captivity, Sloan's situation grows worse. She's selected to be sold next. Katie hears her friend's terrified screams echoing through the metal walls. Powerless and shaking, she covers her ears, whispering Sloan's name over and over. Then a man wearing a grotesque pig mask walks in, his arm covered in tattoos. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. His presence alone says everything. Back at the police station, Jason realizes something isn't adding up. The dismissive behavior of the sheriff, the lack of urgency, it's all wrong. His instincts as a trained FBI agent kick in. That's right, Jason isn't just a farmer. He's a federal agent who's seen evil before. And now it's personal. Knowing he can't trust the local cops, he decides to take matters into his own hands. Every second counts. His nieces are out there, somewhere, terrified and fighting for their lives. The same family that smiled at them across a dinner table now holds them captive in chains. While Jed was keeping an eye on the captives, Boris showed up and gave him an order that chilled the air. He wanted both girls executed immediately. He had just learned that Jason, the girl's uncle and an FBI agent, was actively searching for them. Panic began to spread among the group. Hours later, it was Travis's turn to stand guard. Katie saw her chance. Acting calm and flirty, she distracted Travis with small talk until he let his guard down. And when he did, she bit his neck hard enough to kill him instantly. Heart pounding, Katie grabbed the keys from his pocket, unlocked the handcuffs, and helped Sloan break free. They bolted from the place before anyone realized what had happened. Meanwhile, Andrew, the crooked cop who was part of the gang, was already on his way to check on the girls. When he called Boris and got no clear answer, he became suspicious. But the moment he arrived, he froze. Travis's body was lying on the ground, and the container where the girls had been held was empty. Out in the woods, Sloan and Katie were breathing hard but alive. Instead of running far, they made a bold choice to turn back and finish what those monsters started. They found an old shed, gathered a few weapons, and laid out a plan to hunt down every one of the psychopaths who had tortured them. Their first stop was a small convenience store where Katie asked the shopkeeper for directions to Boris's house, and also about the corrupt sheriff, Andrew. Later that night, Boris came home, exhausted, only to hear faint music playing inside his house. Confused, he went to check it out, but before he could react, Katie appeared from behind and smashed his head with a metal rod. When Boris woke up, he was tied tightly to a table. Both girls stood over him, calm but furious. They wanted answers, especially about the man with the pig mask. 2 hours of torture later, he finally broke and told them everything. The moment he did, Katie ended his life without hesitation. Soon after, Jason reached Boris's house while tracing clues about his missing nieces. What he found instead was a horrifying scene. Boris's body lifeless and the place wrecked. Realizing the girls were alive and taking matters into their own hands, Jason hurried to track them down before they got themselves killed. Katie and Sloan, on the other hand, were already closing in on their next target, another member of the gang. Catching him off guard, Sloan rammed him with their car and dragged his body across the road until the vehicle stopped. Then they set him ablaze, watching the flames consume the man who had once terrorized them. Meanwhile, Jason had grown suspicious of Sheriff Andrew's behavior. To test his hunch, he called Katie's phone, and to his horror, the ringtone came from Andrew's pocket. Before Jason could react, Andrew struck him, knocking him unconscious. Jason woke up later in a locked room at Andrew's house, surrounded by 2 more kidnapped women. Not long after, Katie and Sloan arrived, furious and armed. They caught Andrew off guard and slammed him in the head with a pipe. Tied and begging for mercy, he promised to change, but the girls had no sympathy left. Katie shot him without a second thought. Their final stop was Gemma, Jed and Lucas's mother. She was relaxing, sipping her drink, unaware that Sloan had already spiked it with a sedative. When Gemma regained consciousness, she found herself bound and forced to watch Jed's gruesome death. Katie then turned to Lucas, handing him a weapon and ordering him to kill his mother. When he refused, she pulled the trigger on him too. Finally, with everyone who had hurt them gone, the girls finished their vengeance. Gemma's life ended violently, and the nightmare that began in the countryside was over. Days later, Katie and Sloan returned home to their mother's house, silent but free. They began packing for the vacation they had once planned, a trip that would, this time, actually feel like peace. And with that, the story ends.